Welcome everyone to the first part of a two-part video sequence on how to create a simple workflow in DocuShare Flex. So I've logged onto the system as a system coordinator, so I have the ability to create workflows, and I'm in a folder within Flex. I've created 3 subfolders within that folder. Now what I want to do in my workflow is, if someone scans a document into the current folder or drags and drops a document into that folder, so in any way that we can ingest a document in, when that's created, I want to check to see if the title contains the word invoice. So I'm identifying that that document is an invoice. I want to create a workflow to send that for approval. Once the invoice has been approved, I want to then, depending on whether it's been approved or rejected, I want to move it into an approved or rejected folder and then potentially do further processing on that. So workflows are built within DocuShare Flex using content rules. Content rules are contained against any object. So in most of the cases that we're interested in for workflows, we're looking at folders where we're putting content rules against. So I'm in my workflow example folder here. You can see the subfolders that I've created ready for this. And what I'm going to do is go to the 3 dots, More Actions menu at the top of the folder, pick Settings, and then go to Content Rules. And we've got no content rules in this folder at the moment. What I'm going to do is create the first content rule. So clicking Add Content Rule, we get the start of a simple wizard. And I'm going to name this appropriately, so send invoice for approval, perhaps, and maybe I could even spell. I strongly recommend that you put some sort of description and summary of what this workflow is doing and why it's doing it, because in 6 months' time you're probably not going to remember the background to all the rules that you put into the system. For simplicity, I'm just going to click Next. And we're presented by the first significant screen in the workflow. So this is separated really into 2 parts. The top of this, section 1 and section 2, allow me to select documents that I wish to process. So section 1 allows me to say, if I've defined any document types, I can pick a document type. In this particular example, I haven't defined any document types, so I'm just going to leave that as all documents. The second section allows me to select documents based on their properties. So in this example, I'm going to say if the title contains the word invoice. So it can be as simple as that. I can add other conditions. I can pick from any of the fields defined within the system, but title contains the word invoice is all I need for the purposes of this one. So any document dropped in here with invoice in the title is going to get picked up. The bottom section of the screen is the event that I want to monitor to trigger this on. So anyone that's been using event-based systems will be familiar with this concept. The general idea is almost every action that you do within the system triggers an event within DocuShare Flex. So for example, if I create an object, there's an event for that. If I move it from one folder to another, there's an event for that. If I view a document, there's an event for that. When we're approving and rejecting, we've got events for those. So selecting the appropriate event and the appropriate documents allows us to trigger workflows in the most appropriate way. So in this case, if you remember, I said when we create a document in this folder, so when we drag and drop it or we scan it in there or however we're getting the document in there, when the object is created and the object contains a title with the word invoice in it, we want to process it. So that's all I need to do on that. I can click next, and what we've now presented with is a list of actions that I want to do. So what do I want to do? Well, let's add an action. So I'm going to process this. Perhaps the first thing I want to do is I want to move this document, and I want to move it to a specific folder, so the root of a specific folder, and perhaps let's do a search for folders containing invoice. So here's my invoice folders waiting approval. I'm going to move this document into that folder. That way we know we started to process it, and we can run a simple listing of that folder to see that we're processing that. And the bottom, the only thing that we left to do is we need to select the object that this event was triggered on. So the event, if you remember, is a create event. You're creating the object, so it's the object that we're running on. Click Save. So we've got our move event in there. What else do we need to do? Perhaps we need to actually send it for approval. So let's add another action. And just before I route it for approval, you can see the other actions that we've got in the list here. There's a reasonably comprehensive list here. We can change properties, so I could change the title, I could add something into a different field, perhaps a summary. We can delete things, we can convert things, we can send an email, we can move as we did before. What we're actually wanting to do on this is we're wanting to route this document to someone's task queue for them to process. So selecting route, it's asking for which routing template do I want, and again I'm going to search for an existing routing template that I've set up, and I've got one called invoice approval, so let's select that. And again, lastly, I'm going to say the object that we're processing is the one it's detected on. So again, if you remember, it's the object we've just created. So we've got a move, we've got a route. Shall we notify someone? Let's add another action, and perhaps we'll send an email, and we're going to send it to approval manager at company.com. So it's as simple as that, and give the email a title, no approval, please review this invoice. So we can quite simply build an email. The bottom options we've got here, we can send a link to that document, which is probably the best way. You're not going to overwhelm a mail server. It's just a small link, and when they click, they can come into the system and process. We can send the entire image, document image as an attachment, or we can send it as an archive. I'm going to save it as a link, that's fine. And again, the object that we're processing is the one we've just created. Click Save. So, move, route, email someone to notify them. Click Next. We get a summary screen, and click Done. That's as simple as it is to create a rule. So that rule, when we create an object, will move it to my move the document to my work in progress folder. It will send it to someone's task queue for approval, and it will email that person. We'll continue this workflow discussion in the second video. Thank you.